Supreme Pizza Man. I appreciate your commitment to pizza. Supreme Pizza Man says, your most recent visit and videos at Prop Store have rekindled a curiosity that they have had. Why do costumes look so different in person, and then again, even on video, compared to their appearances on the big screen? Is it wear and tear with storage and time? Is it lighting and cameras? Is it a nostalgia filter? Where is that movie magic coming from? This is a wonderful question, and I have an answer, which might not be the correct answer, but I think this is how this works. When you see a superhero costume on a film, let's start with me in like Prop Store's warehouse in London. When you see a prop there, you are only seeing that prop. You are not getting any of the extra storytelling around it. The purpose of that video is to tell the story of that prop and why it exists. But when that same prop was in the film, nothing could be further from the truth about the shot being about that prop. So let's say you have a superhero in costume in the film. You put him in the frame, but everything about the frame is about communicating the story of that superhero and their powers and their place within the narrative. They may be shot from a low angle if they're triumphing in this part of the scene. They may be shot from a high angle if their status is lowered. They may be, on a long lens, on a short lens. But I feel like I kind of hope that everyone's had just a little bit of art history training. But if you've had any art history classes at all, one of the very first things they teach you is how to kind of read through a Renaissance painting. Because in the Renaissance, they were really learning how to move one's eye through a painting towards details. And there's a very natural way in which a great painter takes you by the hand when you're staring at their painting and showing you things in an order. Your eye moves through a narrative of this 2D thing, and it's really quite magical, and it's real. It's totally real that you can imbue a two-dimensional representation with a kind of movement narrative based on the aesthetics and the layout of that design. It's one of the key reasons I think a basis in graphic design is a really important thing for any other kind of designer, because learning how to make text and type flow and tell the information in an easy and simple manner is a very tough challenge. And it is not dissimilar from the challenge of creating a narrative out of a painting of a few people in a drawing room with some fruit and tables around. So, within the history of painting and art, it is established that you can create these narratives on just a static frame. And in a film, they are doing that for every single frame of the film. So we sit and watch a movie as a temporal experience from beginning to end, and we're watching frames go past a prism, and each one is freezing for a 24th of a second, and it creates this illusion of movement in our heads. But don't be fooled that the movement is the only thing going on, because as they set up the frame, as Chris, one of the Chris's is sitting there in his Captain America suit, and they're framing up on him, they're not just like, does the suit look good? They're like, what's going on with Cap in this scene that we can accentuate with the lighting and the framing and the positioning and where the other characters are and what's actually happening in the frame. So in this way, the director of photography and the director and everyone on down is looking at this frame and adjusting it for each shot. I can tell you, when I worked on episode 1 and 2 Star Wars, I did a lot of motion control shoots, which was like in episode 2, there's the droid factory sequence where Padme is running in the kind of silent movie era, sort of, things chopping and moving, and she's jumping from conveyor belt to conveyor belt. Well, all the background elements of those shots were static elements that we shot on a motion control stage, and we made dozens and dozens of feet of conveyor belt track and a sort of modular system for being able to frame it. And then we had storyboards, and Marty Rosenbaum, the director of photography, would look at the storyboard and he'd say, okay, we need 3 racks here and 1 coming in over here, and we'd set it up however we needed to. But then once the shot was set up, Marty's looking for everything that draws his eye that shouldn't. Okay, there's a little light kick over here. Can we kill that? There's a blank space over there. Can you run some pipes over there? Can we just darken this part down so I can draw more attention into the frame? And those are the efforts being taken in a feature film to put the costume into the world the film is in. That was, I mean, it took a long time to get there, but it really does begin with the mechanics of visually taking in a Renaissance painting to understand why superhero costumes look so freaking fantastic when they're in a film. They're then also, of course, frequently digitally augmented later. I don't know, muscles may get better. Muscles get bitter. Muscles get bitter during the workouts. Muscles get, the muscles may be more pronounced in CG. They might do all sorts of post-processing to do that. But again, the main difference is in the film, you've got this army of people, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people, all trying to create the illusion of a cohesive world we are viewing through the screen of the film. And that's the biggest reason why the costumes look so much better in the movie than they do when I put them on, for instance, or when we go to Prop Store's warehouse and film the unadorned thing. It's there's a thing when you go film, when we went and filmed the Muppet Workshop at Sesame Street, there's a rule among Henson and all the Muppets that you never show what they call a dead Muppet. You never show a Muppet that's not active, that's just lying there. The Muppets are all stored, of course, without people's hands in them, but they don't want to break the illusion and show you the thing like that. And I totally get that. The magic that you lose is significant, and I totally get why they do that. Thank you for that great question, Supreme Pizza Man. What is your favorite pizza? I had, while I was in New York, I went up to New Haven and I had the famous Clams Casino New Haven pizza, which all those folks from Yale are always banging on about, and it was pretty darn good. Just want to say. Jason D. asks a question that he says, I'm currently working on a new Ghostbusters flight suit for a con. And rather than waiting 8 months for a pre-distressed suit from Magnoli, Indy Magnoli and Magnoli Clothiers makes a terrific Ghostbusters flight suit. Jason D says, I've decided to try my own hand at weathering and distressing an off-the-shelf suit. It's looking good, but I've reached the stage where I'm conflicted by my desire to do a little bit more, and I fear I may go too far and cross a point of no return. When you weather your props and costumes, do you have a rule or advice for knowing when to quit? Oh, it's such a good question. Such a good question. The randomness of doing clothing weathering for props is really, really hard to get right and really easy to get wrong. And I find it terrifying too. I found the secret for my Ghostbusters uniform was, hold on just a second, was weathering powders from New York Theatrical Supply. Let's see, Manhattan Wardrobe Supply, that's what it is. I weathered my Ghostbuster suit using some light gray, using some New York soot, and also black. Now, black is terrifying. You put this on, and I'm literally like, I'm dipping a brush in and I'm kind of rubbing it and I'm stepping on it on the ground and things like that. What I found was that whenever the black went too far and left me a streaky streak that didn't feel right, the gray was able to pull it back to a kind of a normal mid-range and gentle the edges and gentle its condition, as it were, so that it didn't stand out too much. But let's talk a little bit about the randomness of staining. Humans are, I'm sure you've heard the axiom among computer scientists that humans are terrible at randomization. It's one of the ways that the IRS can actually find cooked books is by actually testing the randomness of the last 2 digits of a list of sums. And when someone's made up all those sums, it's going to be mathematically much more apparent than if they're actually natural sums. So humans are bad at randomizing. And the best scenic painter I ever worked with, Todd Bray, used to constantly have a camera in his pocket. This is pre-digital cameras, to take pictures of anything that grabbed his attention. A wall with a stain that he didn't expect, a bridge with lichen around the poles. And he did, over the decades of his career, build a tremendous database of wonderful pictures of stuff, because I'm going to make an assumption about where you are with your coveralls. I'm going to make an assumption that where you're at is you've got a general dirtiness about them, but you're not sure how much farther to take the real dirtiness. I think we understand what we mean when we're talking about like shop wear or equipment that gets used at work kind of wear. Because the reality is there is always this basic pass of sort of general dirt. And this follows a bunch of patterns, right? There's always going to be shoulder burn. The shoulders are always, for regular stuff you've been using a lot, the shoulders are going to be, they're the most exposed to the sun. They sit on the hanger. Shoulder burn is real. There's also going to be weathering and wearing around the fringes. So you may use a knife or a blade to kind of tease out some threads there, make that more worn. But when you're talking about the sweat stains and stuff, you got to realize that on some really dirty things, like, go look at a construction worker's high-vis vest. There's often going to be some giant stain, which if it happened to you in the shop, you'd be like, oh, that's taking it way too far, but it's not. And when we take note of these things in real life, it helps us, it helps me. Sorry, I keep on wanting to talk in the universal we. When I take notice of those things in real life, where I find reference material that surprises me, I'll often try and replicate the exact stain I see on something, because I can see that it works. And even though I'm not sure that I can nail it, it is a great guidance for like that random element that lets you know, oh, this really was used, like a big cup of coffee spilled on one arm or something like that. And how do you know when to quit? Look, you've got a con as a deadline. The last day you should be painting is the day before you pack that costume up. When I finished the alien Kane suit here in the cave about a month before I needed to take it to Comic-Con, and it's set right here. And every morning I came in with a cup of coffee and looked at it. And on half of those days, when I ended up with a little coffee left over in my cup, I'd throw it at the thing and just let it build up these kind of different kinds of stains. It is hard work weathering something to feel totally genuine. And I'll say that Danny Glicker and his team, the costumers for Ghostbusters Afterlife, did an absolutely magnificent job weathering all the Ghostbusters coverall. We got to spend time in the costume trailer and got to hold all these things up close. They're beautiful. And I don't know that they weathered them with powders. I think they did it with wet acrylics, which I tried and I found way too terrifying. I found way too, it just struck me as a point of no return. And the powders gave me more forgiveness. You got to wear a mask with these because you don't want to be breathing this stuff in a lot. I've never been dirtier than the day I did this job. And then when I got to places that I liked it, I would seal it with Scotchgard. I would spray the powder with Scotchgard, and that would kind of lock it into the fabric and allow me then to layer over it. With all these weathering questions, I feel like I rambled for a while, and then I hope there was something useful for you in there, and that's the same case here. I've rambled for a while. I hope there's something useful for you in there. These powders gave me the weathering job of my dreams and exceeded my expectations about what I could achieve with my Ghostbusters costume. And they look so much better when they're filthy. So much better. Everybody's Ghostbusters coveralls are too clean. I know they're pretty clean in the first movie. It's the 80s, man. I really feel like they should be filthy, and I feel like that grounds them in a reality. And you're like the Ghostbusters, man. They're working class heroes. Their suits should show it. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects, questions. You get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.